Just like that, we're good.
Yeah, let's try this again here.
Okay.
Okay, episode 4, I think this is.
Numero 4.
Yeah.
Can still count on one hand.
Yeah. We're quickly losing that, though.
I don't know what we're going to do after that once we hit 11.
What's the math thing that they used to use?
Pi.
No, not pi.
It's 3.14 with a whole bunch of numbers after that.
No, the math thing that the sliding thing. What's abacus?
Abacus.
Abacus. Yeah. I literally don't know what it is or how to use it. I just know the name abacus, and it had something to do with math.
We'll have one for the next.
We're gonna have one set up, moving beads across.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this. Episode 4.
Let's go.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mitch. This is the Fit4Moto Academy podcast, where we talk about all things moto to help make you a safer, faster rider, but also because we just love everything as it relates to motocross. I am joined today by my co-host, Rick.
Hey, everybody. Nice to be here.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Yourself, Mitch?
Awesome, dude. I'm really pumped about this one. So let's get through this intro and let's get going.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So, dude, I don't know. Could you even find an abacus anywhere? Like, is that even a thing that a person could get anymore?
eBay, for sure.
Oh, yeah, true enough. Yeah, you could probably find anything on eBay.
I bet I could order it by the time we're done this.
Yeah.
On Amazon.
Totally. Yeah. Actually, you know what? I'm going to look that up right now. At abacus. To be fair, I'm not even sure how to spell abacus.
I think it starts with an A.
I'm going to bring up the Amazon app. I want to see how much this thing costs here. What do you think? How much for an abacus?
$37.23.
30. That's very specific.
Should we have an abacus race?
Dude, I legit spelled it so bad, Amazon doesn't know what I'm trying to spell right now. And because I called it?
I got one for kids. We're starting at $32.99.
Oh, okay.
We can drop her down to $22.98.
So, dude, it is beads. It's a bead thing.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, you're familiar with beads. It's just it's moving beads from A to B. You know what I mean?
I've already ordered one. It'll be here in 2 days.
Okay, I don't know how to use it, but we'll probably figure it. If there's one for kids, I'm sure we can figure it out.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, so yeah, man, so this episode 4 is going to be something called, so you want to do your first race. Now, this is actually inspired by you, and I think it's a really, really good topic, so I'm really pumped about getting this one going. So you want to do your first race, dude, what did you have in mind?
So let's go with a little bit of a backstory. So I've known Mitch for about 7 years now, and when I first met, I had a 125.
Man crush. That's what you meant to say, is a man crush.
That's a given. Who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So when I first met Mitch, I had a 125 two-stroke, a little Yamaha.
I think you need to be more descriptive of it because it was epic.
Oh, geez. It was terrible little bike. So I just putted around on the farm that we had at the time and had a blast doing it. So Mitch wanted to take me out to the track. So went with Mitch. He gave me some coaching, well-needed coaching.
Let's just back up just for a second because I really want to throw some flavor into this, if you will, with this bike, because this thing. So this was epic, and I think actually, to be fair, a lot of people can probably relate to this because. So you had a dirt bike, right? Now, as a brand new dirt bike rider, you traded it for a street bike. Am I right?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so you had this dirt bike. Now, here's the thing. As a brand new dirt biker, you don't know what you don't know, right?
I had no idea what this bike was.
Right.
Yeah,
so
none.
It was a 92 or 94? 94? 1994 Yamaha YZ125. Now, here's the thing. It was not like a restored 1994 Yamaha 125. This thing was clapped out. Like if you go on, I mean, if you're in the US, what is it? Craigslist, I think is a classified thing. Or here it'd be like a Kijiji or something, whatever, some classified site. And you find some totally clapped out two-stroke that some dude's way overcharging for, but you're like, that thing needs a ton of work, which is exactly what my Suzuki was, by the way, which sometimes I regret getting. But if you picture something like that, that's what this YZ 125 was. Like it was in rough shape for sure. It was in rough shape.
Totally. But hey, I got it from a bike mechanic, so it was sound.
Yeah.
So he said.
Yeah. So he said. He obviously didn't know what brakes were because it didn't have those.
Oh, geez.
Okay. So sorry to catch you up. So you had this bike. You were ripping around on the farm on it at the time, and then we kind of met, and I said, "Hey, I'm into dirt biking. Why don't we head out to the track and I can show you a couple things." Yeah.
So we went to the track, had an absolute blast. I remember first time I jumped on riding, I was sitting on the fender and Mitch was like, "Hey, you gotta scoot forward a bit."
Yeah, dude, you're riding it like a Harley or something. Like your arms were in full extension and your butt was like on the back fender. It was wicked. Yeah.
Yeah. So, fell in love with the track, had an absolute blast. Loved it. Mitch made me ride his 450 to check that out to see what a real bike was like. So I'm on Mitch's bike, just scared to death that I'm going to die on that thing. It was so fast. And there's Mitch ripping around on this 125. He's trying to hit corners about as fast as he would on his bike, failing to realize there were no brakes on that bike, which I hadn't ridden a dirt bike before, any other dirt bikes, so I just assumed you hit the brakes and nothing happened.
Yeah, so I came screaming into this corner, and I'm expecting it to maybe not have super powerful brakes, but because I think at the time I had a YZ 450F, right? Yamaha, correct, right? Yeah. So I'm expecting to have some sort of brakes, right? So I come into this corner on this 125, and I'm having fun because I hadn't ridden a 125 in like 20 years, and lo and behold, no brakes. So I come screaming into this corner. I grab a handful of brakes trying to get slowed down, and nothing happens. And I just about killed myself. So, but it's a really good point in that, as a lot of newer riders, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what they have or don't have, right? And that's actually a really common thing. So a lot of the little kids that I coach whose families are not into riding, they quite often will have bikes that have a ton of issues, but they don't even know that they have issues. Like I'll get a look at the bike and I'm like, man, there's this, and this is wrong with this thing. Like you really need to fix these because you're riding it in an unsafe manner. So I think that's something that probably a lot of people can relate to. It's just not knowing what you don't know when you're newer to the sport.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So just moving on, fell in love with the track, fell in love with riding, and I ended up finding a really sweet deal on a YZ 250F.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. So I took his old bike, and it was fantastic. And yeah, so I got started riding in my 30s, and I am closer to my 40s now than my 30s. Life happens. Had a kiddo. Didn't get out to the track as much as I wanted, but I am back at it, going tons, and I want to race, Mitch. I want to do a vet beginner by the end of the season.
Now you wanted to do the Big Kahuna race, is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for people who don't know what the Big Kahuna race is, it's a race in Kamloops, British Columbia, Canada. And it's really sort of a unique race in that it involves a bunch of different parts of dirt biking into one kind of giant loop. So it's got a motocross track in it. It's got an enduro cross track with tires and rocks and that kind of stuff. It's got a grass track, like if you picture like a track in a farmer's field, it's got that. It's got a wood section in it. It's kind of combines a bunch of this different stuff, which makes it a really unique event. I did it for the first time this year, right?
This year,
yeah. I did it for the first time this year, and dude, I cannot wait for next year. It was so much fun. I'm so stoked to go back to it.
That was one of the coolest events, coolest experiences that I've been to. Just the people out there were fantastic. It was a cool track, just great vibe. It was awesome. Can't wait to go again.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm stoked to go. I think, so I went in the amateur category last year. I'd literally never ridden, certainly never raced rocks and logs. Like, I'd literally never ridden my bike over like big rocks and boulders and logs and stuff before, ever.
That's the stuff you avoid.
Yeah, totally. Like, if I'm on the track, I ain't steering for the logs, man. Like, I'm trying to stay on the track where none of that is.
If you run into logs at one of the tracks you ride at, Mitch, you got issues.
There's a problem.
You're not on the track anymore.
There's a big problem. Yeah. And then in the woods portion, again, certainly never raced. I mean, I went out riding in the bush maybe twice or three times growing up, It was really not a normal thing for me. So, so with all that being said, I jumped into the amateur category, no idea what to expect. I'm just thinking, hey, this seems like a cool event. I want to try it out and try and get from A to B and try and finish and see how it goes. And so I enjoyed it so much that I think I could probably level up a little next year. I'll jump into the fast class where the obstacles are a little bigger. Like the moto track there, they kind of cut it in half for the amateur side, whereas the fast class, they put it to full track and things like that. Anyway, so I'm really looking forward to it.
How long was that race, Mitch?
So I think the fast class, I want to say, was 3.5 hours ish. And then my class, I want to say, was 2 or 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, doing motos, a 45-minute moto for me is a long race, and that's what I was prepared for. And I really liked the challenge of pushing those boundaries into the hours and hours long. It's a bit of a different mindset, right? So with motos, you can go out, do a quote unquote sprint laps, kind of settle into your moto pace, a pace that you can sustain for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. You're not going for 4 hours at a time. So that was a really different thing for me to kind of wrap my head around, but I really liked it.
Awesome. So you've just described this amazing event. I'm sure everybody heard that and understands how cool that sounds. Now, that's an event I want to do. I want to work towards that. And I was thinking on this episode, I could just ask you a few questions and, figure out what you think I should be doing to prepare for a race, for my first race.
Yeah, I like it, dude. And I'm stoked that you want to do it too, because I think just having done sort of the amateur loop last year, I think it's definitely within your skill set to pull that off. I don't think you're going to have any troubles with that at all. So I'm really looking forward to getting out there with you, and I can't wait I'll be running around the track like an idiot after you as you do like your 2 hours or whatever it is. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Jeez, that seems like a long time, but yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, dude.
So, with you talking about how long the race is, 2 hours, huge chunk of time. How the heck do I prepare for that?
So before we get into that, Can you hear Floki?
Yeah. Bark.
What an ass. It's a little, we have an English bulldog puppy. His name is Floki, and he's upset that we're not inviting him into this podcast. So
he's extremely cute.
Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't continue barking, because it's going to get old. If he does, then we'll just pause this and I'll go shut him up. Is he still barking?
You'd go give him some cuddles.
That's how you do it. That'll get him more fired up. I don't hear him anymore.
No, it's good.
I do hear rain. Do you hear the rain?
Yeah, it's raining.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Okay. Anyway, so where do we live? So how do you, what was your question?
How do I prepare for that? So 2 hours on a bike, that's going to be draining. I imagine there'll be arm pump. I'll be fatigued. How do I physically prep for that?
So a couple of things here, without getting too far into the weeds on the fitness side of things, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole with that, because we could talk about base cardio levels and VO2 maxes and all this type of endurance stuff.
Let's dumb it down for someone like me.
Yeah, someone like you, yeah, says the freak of nature. So, I would say if somebody's looking at doing an event like that and they've never raced before, right? And if you're looking at one of the first races you do is a longer event like that, like say like a cross country race, right? Those are hours long, again, as opposed to moto where, you're racing for 15 minutes at a time,
yeah,
unless you're in the pro class. But so I would say, you're going to really want to look at base cardio levels. So doing longer runs, maybe not at a super high pace, right? But keeping your heart rate, somewhat lower, or doing longer bike rides or anything like that. Something that you're doing for a long duration that really just kind of tells your body, hey, be prepared, because we're going to be stretching this out for hours and we can't stop. So just acknowledge that I'm going to test you for a long period of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So with a race that's 2 hours long, should I be throwing on my jogging stuff and running for 2 hours straight? Or should I slowly work up to that? Because I don't think I could go run for 2 hours.
Totally. Well, and it totally depends where you're at too, right? If some people, maybe they haven't raced before, but they have some base level of fitness, they'll be okay to go out and try and kind of start fairly high up that scale. But if you're new to working out and racing and all that stuff, certainly, it really depends on what you can do. If you can do 10 minutes, do 10. If you can do 30 minutes, do 30 minutes, and just try and build your way up to, a pace that you can sustain for that period of time. You know what I mean? So again, without getting too far in the weeds, there's a whole pile of stuff that your body's going to adapt to when you start doing longer duration things like that. Your energy delivery within your system, your body's going to get more efficient at pulling free fatty acids out of your bloodstream and kind of using those, and glucogenesis and all that kind of stuff. So training your body to get used to that is a really important thing if you're looking at doing one of those races and you've never done an endurance event like that, for sure.
Gotcha. Just popped into my mind. You had a free ebook on Fit4Moto. Do you still have that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you go to Fit4Moto.com, there is a free ebook on nutrition. So and we have programs on there as well. So there's actually 2 programs. There's an amateur program, which is a little more intense. Like if you're a racer that's up and coming and you're pretty serious about it, that's a good program for you. And then we have another one. It's called the Weekend Warrior. So that'd be for someone,
old guy like me.
Yeah. So that'd be for someone like you or I, where, you're not dedicating your entire life to racing, but you still want to get a little fitter, right? So both of those programs, depending on kind of where you're at, they're 12-week programs, 3 months long. So you can kind of, you don't have to follow them to the T. It's a really good guideline for you to kind of work off of if you want to get fitter. Those are totally free. And then there is the free ebook that focuses on nutrition, what you should be eating, when you should be eating it. Some really good guidelines for that stuff as well, and a whole pile of information in there that'll help you kind of prepare for something like that. Again, you don't need to be the number one CrossFitter in the world or the fittest dude on the planet to find these things useful. It's just a really good guideline for people to have who maybe don't have the background that I do in it. It's just a good place to start.
Awesome. Thanks, Mitch.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've touched on fitness a little bit. Next thing I was wondering, where do I learn all this stuff? So there's a whole bunch of obstacles that I haven't seen. Like you talked about the rocks, the logs, the grass track, that kind of stuff. And for some people who come from a background like that, the motocross side, they probably haven't done much of. So how do you learn all of these things? Do you have any suggestions, like something like YouTube, or, well, I'll let you.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. So, I guess it kind of depends on where you're at as a rider too, right? So, do you ride moto all the time, or do you ride sometimes? Maybe you've never ridden moto, and let's just say, because obviously, like if you're riding the trees and do enduro stuff, that portion you're going to be somewhat familiar with, right? You're going to understand how to get through the trees. And maybe you get to the moto track and you're super intimidated because there's these huge jumps and you're not sure how to hit the lips on these things, because in the trees you may only jump, 10, 15 feet or something like that. But you're certainly not sailing 120 feet, nor are you hitting the size of the faces on some of these jumps. So depending on where you're at as a rider, if you do wood stuff, you can absolutely, there's obviously a ton of videos on YouTube about motocross, and vice versa. There's a ton on riding in the trees and what to look for and that kind of stuff too. As a bit of a shameless plug, there are the Fit4Moto YouTube channel. That's all motocross stuff, tips on how to get around the track and all that kind of stuff. So there's that. But, I would say, let's just start off with, let's say we've got Rick who's riding around on the farm, right?
Yep.
Had you ever hit a motocross track at that point?
No, that was my first time.
Okay. So, and that's perfect. So now around the track, did you ride around through the trees? Because you had like a tree patch out there.
Yeah. We had 80 acres with a couple trails.
Right.
So I just putt around slowly and try not to hit things.
Try not to get cleared out by a tree.
Yeah. It happened once or twice.
Yeah. So, So let's take someone like that, right? Like obviously you've ridden on tracks a little more now, but let's take kind of where you're at, and you decide, hey, I really like riding this dirt bike, and I heard there's this really cool event coming up and I want to try it, right? So obviously, to me, exposure is a big piece of it, because through exposure, you gain confidence and you also gain some respect for what you're trying to do, right? So on the confidence side, you can say, okay, I've gone over these jumps. I'm not clearing them, right? You're not going to get to the moto track first time and clear an 80-foot jump, but at least you can literally roll over them and go, okay, that's not so bad. Because as insignificant as that may seem, I have had people come up to me and say, dude, I'm too intimidated to do a single lap on this track. Like, I'm not trying to jump anything. I'm literally trying to get from point A back to point A on this track. And it's too intimidating for me because of the jumps and stuff. I can't get around it, right? So it's not always about just jumping. Sometimes it's about having the confidence to just literally roll over stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that that's probably a good place to start, is just expose yourself to some of that and build the confidence level to say, okay, I can go up the steep face of this thing. The bike's not going to stall. I'm not going to die. It's not going to endo on me. I can roll over it and I'm going to be fine. So if you go and jump in the beginner class, if nothing else, you're still going to get from A to B, right? And you can have some form of confidence in that. And then vice versa, with the respect side of things, you can also say, okay, I hit that lip going a little fast, kicked the bike a little funny, pooped my pants, right? Almost died.
Yeah.
Now I have a newfound respect for understanding where my skill level is at and understanding that I need to be cautious on how quickly I'm hitting these things.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that also applies to the rocks and logs side. So for context, I'd never ridden over rocks and logs before, dude. Like, I went to this race going, no idea what I'm doing on this section. The moto side, the grass track side, I'm good, right? That's nothing new to me. But the rocks and logs, I have no idea. Like, I didn't have these files programmed into my mind to say, if I hit a log at this pace with the front end this many inches off the ground and I hit a log this big, this is what the bike is going to do. And I have all of these things for motocross. And it's so intuitive to me that I can hit these things going really fast and I know exactly what the bike is going to do, right? So, but I don't have all that for the rocks and logs. So again, coming back to, if you're really, really new to riding, exposing yourself to some of that. So try and go over some really small stuff, small trees, small logs, rocks, that kind of stuff, and see what the bike does. And then again, gives you the confidence to say, okay, I'm not going to die if I go over a tree. The bike's not going to come to a complete halt, although maybe it will if I hit a big enough one. And again, you're going to learn some respect, because then when you do hit a big one and the bike does come to a stop, you're going to say, oh, okay, I can't just charge head first into this thing and expect the suspension to soak it all up on me.
Gotcha. Thanks, Mitchie.
Yeah.
Okay. So talked about fitness, talked about how to learning new skills, that kind of stuff. So I want to get better. I want to improve. How do I do that when I show up to the track? What should I be doing? So
that's a really good question too. So I'm a big proponent of what I'll just call reps of it. So let's say you're at the track. It's doing laps, right? Now, maybe not doing laps mindlessly. Obviously, it's going to be better if you start out with some form of understanding what you should be doing, right? Because then you don't start building bad habits and that kind of thing. So let's say you're going to start out with moto. So whether you watch YouTube videos and you kind of learn from there to say, this is where I need to sit on the bike, this is where I need my feet, my hands, and all that kind of stuff, and then go out and do some laps riding, figuring that out. And I would say the same thing applies across to the enduro stuff, watching some videos to say, oh, okay, I understand what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to go out and practice some of that. Whereas I find if you don't watch a video, or if you don't get coaching lessons or something like that, and you go out, you're not going to know what you're doing wrong necessarily, right? And so A, that's not safe, and B, that's not really preparing properly for like your first race.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So I would say try and learn as much as you can before you go out about what you should be doing. And then also, when you're done, if you can, get some video of yourself and review that when you're done and go, oh, okay, I'm watching this other video on YouTube or whatever it is, and I see how they have their weight forward here, and I'm not doing that, right? Kind of break down what you're doing if you can, and try and get better that way. I mean, obviously, there's lots of other platforms out there that kind of takes that off your plate too. So, for example, the Fit4Moto Academy on our Patreon, you can submit videos of yourself riding and we can critique them for you. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So you can kind of take that out of play altogether and say, hey, you could say, hey, my name's Rick and I want to try a race and I'm trying to get better for it. I'm trying to train for it. Here's a video of me. What am I doing wrong? Right. And we have the ability to to take that and go, well, here's what you're doing. This is how you're going to kind of fix it, kind of thing.
So you'll watch that video, you'll break it down, and then get back to them with what they can do to improve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's just one of the benefits of the higher Patreon level. But anyway, so I would say like trying to figure out kind of what you should be doing. That's a big part of it, right? And like I said, I think that kind of applies both to the moto side and to the enduro side for sure. And, having some kind of plan when you get there too is a big thing. Cause I know for me personally, like a lot of times I just get to the track and I just want to ride around because I think it's fun. And I have to remind myself, no, we're going to focus on this today. Right. So for example, I'm doing a Red Bull event coming up this summer. It's a Red Bull Outliers, and it's riding on stuff that I've never seen in my life. So for me personally, I have to prepare for that. And that means in this particular event, I'm going to have to go and practice hill climbs. So exactly what I said, I'm going to start out with probably some smaller-ish hills. Now, granted, I have a certain skill level baseline already on a dirt bike, right? I can understand what the bike is going to do and where my weight needs to be and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to kind of hit the ground running with a lot of it, but I'm still going to start off at a level where I can gain some confidence in what I'm doing before I go and try and hit some ridiculous obstacle, right? Yeah. And two, I'm going to understand what my limitations are and earn respect of, okay, that I'm never going to make it up that. So understand where I need to cut out and, be safe.
Gotcha. That makes sense. All right. So I pull up to the track. I know what I should be doing. Am I going to just rep that out, hit the same thing, pull off the track, do it again? Or should I be doing full laps? What would you recommend?
I would say it totally depends on where you're at. So it depends on the skill set. So let's say I want to focus on starts, right? Like I know maybe you care about the start of the race, maybe you don't, right? Focus on what the start of that race looks like and practice some of those, right? So you don't have to do a whole lap every time. Certainly as a beginner, you can just do a couple reps of those, Once you get to a more experienced level, I do find it beneficial to do the start, do a sprint lap, an all-out pace as fast as you can go, and then come back to the starting line, take a quick breather, and then do that again, because that to me simulates the race where gate drops, you're going out and going as hard as you can for that first lap, and then you're dialing it back a little bit, right? So versus a beginner could probably benefit from just doing a whole pile of starts, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, I do think there are times where you want to practice doing full laps. So, if the technique that you're working on is standing more on the bike, obviously you're not just going to stand in a corner, although that's beneficial too. You're going to want to stand the whole way around the track. And then learning that skill is a continuous thing, right? So doing a corner and stopping isn't going to be as beneficial as standing up for 5 laps if you can do it around every obstacle, every corner, everything. That's going to build a lot more of a skill set for you. So I think depending on the skill set, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And then one other thing that pops into my mind all the time. So again, beginner rider here. I'm an old man, closer to my 40s than my 30s. How much should I care about other people on the track? So let me rephrase that. So I'm on the track doing my thing. I'm not very good. I'm all over the place. I basically don't want to be in other people's way. And sometimes I feel like I shouldn't be there because I'm too new.
So that's a really good question. And again, I think a lot of people can relate to that. And this is one thing that I actually feel fairly passionate about. For me, whether you're the guy who's first time he's ever thrown a leg over a bike, or if you're the fastest guy at the local track, to me, it does not matter. You both deserve the respect to be there. Okay. So for me, being a more experienced rider, I know that when I get to the track, if there's slower riders on that track, that's good. There's a whole lot to this. It's good in a lot of ways. One, the sport is growing, right? So we want to encourage that. 2, they're just trying to learn. Everyone has to start somewhere, right? Yeah. And for 3, if anything, you should be encouraging them, not thinking, oh, this guy's in my way while I'm trying to moto down. If you want, this is just my opinion, right? Some people may disagree with this, but if you want to go and do motos and moto down and be hardcore and all that kind of stuff, then you need a private place. If you're going to a public place and you're expecting everyone just to get out of your way and that it's your track, dude, beat it. beat it. You don't belong there. You don't belong there. So my advice to anyone who may feel that way, because again, everyone starts somewhere. I had to start somewhere, and I know what that feeling is like. I would say just do you, right? Maintaining all the track etiquette.
And be respectful. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So just be respectful, but just do you, dude. Like if you're out doing your pace, it's no different than if I'm out doing my pace. It's all relative, right? Like if you're out doing your pace and I come up on you, okay, I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to figure out where I can get around this guy. I'll get around you and I'll keep going, right? If I'm out doing my pace and Eli Tomac comes up, he's going to think the same thing. I'm going to figure out where I can get around this guy. I'm going to get around him and I'm going to keep going, right? It's not like I'm going to be able to put up a fight. So to me, again, it's all relative. And so I think it's super important that anyone that feels that way, that they just understand that everyone that's there that you think is quote unquote fast or skilled or anything, they had to start somewhere too. And even, if you go over to like the rocks and logs side of things, same thing, man. Like if you have that big of an ego that you think you own the place, then you need a private facility. If you go to any, this is again, just my opinion, but if you go to any public venue and you think you have the right of way because you're one of the faster guys, dude, eat a dick. 100%. Like that's just the way I feel about it. Yeah. I don't think that that's okay. I don't think that's okay at all. As a matter of fact, I make it a point that when I'm going around the track, even if I'm mid-moto, I will give people a big thumbs up as I go around them because I think it's cool that they're out there doing it and they're trying to get better and they're doing the best that they can, right?
And that's something I've seen you do time and time again. And I absolutely love seeing that. So I don't need to feel bad for being a slower rider on the track. I don't need to feel bad because I'm rolling over jumps because I don't feel safe.
No.
Trying to double that.
No, absolutely not. Now, and I will preface this by saying, in Calgary, we're very fortunate in that we have a pro track and then we have a couple other tracks that you can ride. Okay. Now, I will say that if you go out onto the pro track and there's always a couple tracks open. So it's not like there's only ever the pro track open. There's always the pro track, which is like the main track. And then there's another one for everyone else to ride as well. So you always have an option, right? If you go out to the pro track and that's the pro track, right? That's where fast guys are going to go. If you go out onto the pro track and you're not at that level, you do have to be aware that there's going to be some guys that are coming around real fast.
And that makes sense. You need to have some rider awareness and where your own skill level is.
Absolutely. So, I can see guys getting a little more upset if super new guy goes out to the pro track and is potentially, he's so new that he doesn't know what he's doing wrong. And now he's putting the faster riders, he's putting their safety at risk because he's doing things on the track that are not safe and he doesn't even know it. For example, he's cutting from one line to the next as the guy's coming up on him, right? It's kind of the whole track etiquette thing, but I would say that there's some things there that I will preface by saying if you're going out to the pro track, recognize that. That being said, I do know that like a lot of places only have one track and everyone rides on the one track, right? And if that's the case, let's say you're at Pala or you're at Glen Helen in California or something like that. And really it's just kind of the one track. I mean, they do have vet tracks, but you know what I mean, right? Like there's the kind of the one main track.
Yeah.
Then I would say if you're one of the faster guys riding there, and just my opinion, get over it. You're going to have to understand that you're going to have to go around slower people. So if you're one of the slower people, hell yeah, dude, you do you. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Even if I come around and guys are like, oh man, he's smoked that corner, he's fast and whatever. I'm slow in context to somebody like Eli Tomac, right? It's all relative. So, no matter what skill level you're at, I would just encourage you, don't worry about what everyone else is doing. You do you, and go out and do the best that you can in the safest way that you can with other riders on the track. And that is the only thing you should worry about.
Gotcha. Thanks, Mitch. You touched on race etiquette. What's some of the race etiquette that I should be aware of or any new rider should be aware of when they do their first race?
Race etiquette or like track etiquette?
Race etiquette.
Race etiquette.
So anything that stands out, or is it basically just the track etiquette?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just more track etiquette. Some of the rules kind of go away in a race. Like you're not going to get out of people's way in a race necessarily, right? Unless the one thing I can say for race etiquette is if you're getting lapped, get out of the way, right? Pull over and let them by. Don't stay in the main line.
That makes sense.
Yeah. That's definitely a big thing for race etiquette. Whereas track etiquette is like, if you're just out practicing, right? There's a couple do's and don'ts. So for example, if a faster guy than you is coming up behind you and you're new to the track, stay in your line. Don't go from side to side. Just stay doing what you're doing. I will, or the other dude will read off of you and just find a different way around you. It's totally good. It's when you make these last second decisions and cut from one side to the other, that's when things get dangerous, because I'm not expecting you, or the other fast dude is not expecting you to do that. And that has happened lots. Like, I've learned that when I come up on people, you kind of learn to read their body language a little bit, and you can tell where they're at in an instant and go, I need to check up big time, because this dude is not going to stay in the line that he's in. And sure enough, he'll come across in the air, or had I stayed on the gas and come in hot, I would have smashed into him. So, the more experienced riders, though, they get that. They understand what they need to do. So
yeah, and that's something I was guilty of when I first started riding. Like, you hear somebody coming in hot, first thing you want to do is, I want to get out of the way. But like you just said, that's one of the worst things you can do, because they don't expect that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, just keep doing what you're doing, right? I will, or whatever, whoever it is, they will find a way around you to keep going. And that's totally cool. Like you said, it's when you do unexpected things, that's when things start to get a little hairy, right? So that's definitely one track etiquette thing. For me, another big part is, and this is a little off topic, but like in the pit area, not flying through the pit areas. Like, when you're going past the trucks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the signs usually say first gear, go slow, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And if you're out in a facility where, there's not really anyone working there, you just kind of get a key to the joint. And it's not really monitored. I think that's when you start seeing people do stupid stuff in the pit area. To me, it's just a respect thing, right? Like, go fast out on the track, rev your bike up, do your wheelies, do all that stuff. But in the pit area, there's lots of people around. There's bikes coming and going everywhere, kids, whatever. If you want to send it, well, you're at a dirt bike track, so go send it.
You're at the perfect place to do it.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Go hit the track.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, man, as far as race etiquette, I mean, that's kind of the one big one. If you're getting lapped, move over, let the guy by. Now, I know that kind of contradicts what we were just talking about. When you're getting lapped, you may know it sometimes, you may not always know it, right? But a lot of times what you will hear is you'll hear somebody yell at you, hey, move over, and you can hear quite clearly. Or secondly, you'll hear someone rev their bike. So a lot of times, and this actually happens to me quite a lot when I ride, is I come up on a guy who's a little slower than me, and he knows I'm behind him, right? You can tell when someone's behind you, right? It's not a secret.
Yeah.
It's not like they're wearing an invisibility cloak and their bike isn't making any sounds. You know when someone's behind you, right? So a lot of times people will know that I'm behind them, and they'll stick to their line, but they won't, I don't know how to word this. They won't move over, or they won't let me by. Like, they won't let off to let me by. Like, it's very obvious that they're trying to not let me pass, right? So coming back to track etiquette, that's not something you should really do. If you're practicing and a guy that's faster than you comes up on you, you should hold your line, but also don't try and fight him for space on the track.
Gotcha. So track etiquette, hold my line, let him pass when you can. Race etiquette, if I'm getting lapped, if I'm struggling, should I even be in a main line, or should I be out on the outside just so people can sail right by? Yeah,
I would say, as long as the people aren't actively trying to get past you, stay in the main line. Sure, it's not hurting anything, because you're doing your race too, right? So I don't think that you should just give up altogether and not ride your race, because you're doing your race too. But definitely don't hold up the guys that are coming around. But yeah, so if I come up on someone and they're very obviously trying to not let me by, I will rev my bike. So you'll just hear my bike start screaming behind you. Not in gear, like I'll pull in the clutch and I'll start revving it up. That's a very clear signal coming from the guy behind you to get out of the way. So if you hear that, track etiquette is, okay, I'm in someone's way, I'm going to move out of the way. It's not being rude. It's just without the ability to have mics and stuff in our helmet, we're trying to communicate, right?
Yeah,
So
that's the best way you can do it.
yeah. So a lot of times I'll come up on somebody and I'll follow them for, a few corners or something, and they know that I'm there and they don't want to let me by. That's when I'll start revving my bike up to say, dude, I understand that you don't want to let me by and you're trying to ride and stuff, but you're getting in the way. Just move over, and or if not, that's cool. You don't have to move over, but understand that I'm then going to find a way to get around you, and you might not like it. I might spray you with a whole lot of dirt and rocks, and it may get a little aggressive to get around you because you're not letting me do that, right?
Yeah, fair enough. You've given them chances. You've given them warnings. So.
Yeah, and I feel like if I'm on the track and there's a pro that's trying to get around me, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna try and make this hard, dude. I'm expecting to get slammed in a corner. Because like that's the way it goes, dude. Like if you don't get out of the way for them, for someone that's faster than you, I'm expecting if I leave the door open, this dude's going to pop me in a corner.
They'll find a way. You just won't like it.
Exactly. So like I say, if you hear that bike revving, that's what that is. It's, hey, can you move over? I'm trying to get through, and I'm trying to be respectful about it, right? Otherwise, I might pass you in an area that you don't really like. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, so I think as far as track etiquette goes, that's a couple things. And they do have the rules and stuff when you hit the track, but there's a couple things like they don't mention revving bikes. They don't put that on the board, right? And sticking to your line, that's a big one. If you're really new, always following the track direction. So it might not be obvious all the time which direction the track goes, right? So obviously, number one, look for other riders on the track and pick up where they are. But you might have to look at some obstacles and be like, okay, I think that like if nobody's there, nobody's riding, right?
Yeah.
Then look at the track and say, well, it looks like it's going this direction, because there was actually a kid a few years back now, maybe 10 years or so, something like that. He was out on the main track at Calgary. He was on a little bike, and a pro came over one of the big jumps. It's a big blind jump. Kid was going the wrong direction, landed on the kid and killed him.
Oh, well, that's brutal.
Yeah. So, being aware of the track direction too, especially on a pro track like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, man, I think, if you're looking at doing your first race, depending on where your fitness is at, there's some options there for you, and you can get a little better at that, or dude, wing it fitness wise too. Like you don't need to be a rock star, right? You can always try it and see where you're at. And dude, if you get 30 minutes into this 2-hour race, 3-hour race, whatever it is, and you hit a wall, well, you're going to know I need to work on this.
Yeah.
Right. And conversely, if you get going around and you hit, and I can actually use an example of my own for this. When I did that Big Kahuna race last year, you're going to hit the same log, by the way, or go around it like I did. But there's this giant log, and they've had this giant log for a long, long time. And you can either go over the log or try to go over this log, and which people crash and et cetera, or you can take a route around the log, but it takes you forever to go around this log. So you lose a bunch of time.
Can you just pick your bike and carry it over?
You actually, you physically, yeah. So looking back now, I probably should have just, because I didn't quite understand how to hit this big of a log yet, I should have probably just stopped and physically picked the bike up and just lifted it over the log is what I should have done. I totally could have done it, dude. And it would have saved me a bunch of time. But anyway, so next year you'll see exactly what log I'm talking about. And now that I have a little bit more experience doing that stuff, it's not actually that big of a log. Of course, the first time you see it, you're like, holy, we got to go over that thing?
Yeah.
It's not that bad. That's not that bad at all. So I would say, yeah, like, there's going to be some stuff where you have to kind of figure it out as you go too, right?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thanks for all the tips, the advice. Is there anything else you can think of?
All of the advices.
All of the advices.
I feel like there's some good advices in this one.
Most definitely.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know what? There is so many things as a newer rider that we could go over to prepare you for something like a race, right? That's not even touching on the mental side and trying to get the jitters out and like the nerves and
definitely, yeah. There'll be lots of that.
Yeah, and like as you get more experienced, you calm down and you get used to it and you don't the number one thing for new riders is they get arm pump, right? They hang on with a death grip, and that's nerves. So, there's so many things that we could go over as it relates to, hey, I want to try my first race. But I would say, understand that it's going to be physically challenging. So if you're really new to biking and you haven't tried any of that kind of stuff, it's going to be physically challenging. And that is elevated even more in a race situation. So if you go out and do, like, let's say I go to the track and I do a 40-minute moto, okay? If I do that same 40-minute moto in the pro class, it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder, right? For one, nerves. For two, you're trying a little more, right? So there's some things there that you just can't really prep for on your own that you're going to experience once you get into that race situation.
Gotcha.
So, the closest thing that you could do to try and simulate that race is to go out to a place where there's other riders and try and get in and around them and get used to all those riders around you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably a good way to try and inoculate yourself to it. Although, and even the very best guys in the world say this, there's only so much you can do to prepare for an event like that. And then you just have to do it and kind of see where you're at.
Okay.
Yeah. So, man, if you're looking at doing your first race, again, by all means, feel free to hit us up, man. You can email me, Mitch, at Fit4Moto.com. It's FITFOURMOTO.com. That's the email. DM me on Instagram. Just Fit4Moto, FIT, the number 4, MOTO. I'll answer whatever questions you have as it relates to anything dirt biking related. It doesn't have to be about starting a race. It can be about fitness, or it can be about anything, man. I'm always open to lots of questions. So if this podcast kind of hit with you and you're like, maybe I do want to try and do a race, and maybe it's not the big kahuna and it's not this endurance race, maybe it's a moto race, or maybe it is a cross country race or something like that. I'm all ears, man. I'm willing to do whatever I can to help you out. So by all means, hit us up. And don't forget to head over to the Patreon and check out the different Patreons that we have. So if you want early access to schools, you want limited edition merch that we run, you want one-on-one coaching from me online, I'm available all the time to you. That's something that we can do as well. Just head over to the website, Fit4Moto.com, and head over to the Patreon. From there, there's a link in there that you can go to and help support the page, man, and keep this thing going. I like doing these pods. I think they're fun. It's a cool conversation. I like doing all the videos because I love all things moto. So if we can keep that going, I'm all in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks
You got anything else to add?
Nothing.
Is that
Thanks for
it?
sticking around.
Yeah. Are we done? Can I hit some of these buttons now?
Yeah. Big red one, I think.
Well, that one. Hold on. What's this one?
Oh, yeah.
I always. Oh, there it is. The crickets.
Crickets.
I don't know. I gotta change some of these to something else, I think. Rim shot.
What's the bottom right?
Harp. It's like a. Wow. Wow. Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. That is episode number 4.
Quattro, I think.
Number 4. So I want to do a race. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Stay tuned for episode 5. Don't know what it's going to be yet, but I do know it's going to be a silly goose time. Thanks so much on behalf of myself and Rick. Thanks for tuning in to the Fit4Moto Academy podcast, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you next week.